Okay, so good afternoon. My name's Julia Coakley. I'm Head of Operations at the MGA, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar this afternoon, which is being hosted by Contimi. Before I introduce our presenters, I would like to run through a few housekeeping matters and ask, please ensure that your microphone and camera is switched off. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the chat button at the bottom of your screen. This question will be answered during our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If we don't have an opportunity to answer your question before the end of the presentation, Contimi have kindly agreed to answer any questions post-event. This presentation is accredited for CPD points if this is relevant to your learning and development programme. The video of the webinar will be available on our website and our MGA YouTube channel, and we will provide a copy of the slide deck post-event. Please take time to respond to our survey, which will be issued after this event, as your opinion really is important to us, and it will enable us to put on the best quality events for our MGA members. So today's webinar, Digital First Mindset, a recipe for speed and success for MGAs, is presented to you by Contimi. I'd like to introduce you to Angelica Chilek, Financial Services Specialist for Northern Europe, Amazon Web Services, Andrew Clues, Director, Ulysses Re, Reinsurance Brokers, Daniel Thavelen, Executive Director for Global SaaS, Contimi Solutions, and William Rouse, Director for UK and Europe, Contimi Solutions. Daniel, if I might pass over to you.
Or William.
Yep. Yeah,
William, I beg your pardon.
No, it's okay. It's over to me. Right. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. Okay. So thank you all very much for joining us to discuss ways in which the MGA market can benefit from digitization and adopting a digital first mindset. I'll start at the lowest rung of the ladder and actually formally introduce myself. My name is William Rouse. I'm a director for the UK and Europe over here at Contimi, and I'm joined by some very illustrious names within our industry as well. So Angela Chilek, who is a financial services specialist for Northern Europe at AWS. Angelica currently works with financial institutions to transform how they leverage customer insights, broaden the usage of key data in their risk management and operational processes, as well as expand the usage of analytics and data-driven insights across the organization. We're also joined by Andrew Clues. Andrew is a director at Ulysses Re, Reinsurance Brokers, and has over 12 years of experience working in the reinsurance industry with MGAs, MGUs, wholesale brokers, risk managers, reinsurers, corporate service providers, and captive managers for clients worldwide. So quite the repertoire there. Finally, and by no means least, we have Daniel Thavelen. Daniel leads Contimi's SaaS division by driving the company's SaaS strategy and Contimi's focus on the success of clients. Daniel is also responsible for innovation and revenue growth for the company's SaaS offerings worldwide, and beginning with the recently launched Seamless Insurance SaaS platform. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, if I could ask, could we just get on to the next slide, please? Is that all right? There. Oh, no, it's the, I believe it's the, no, if we could go up a few. It's the one with the Contimi back. There we go. That's the one. So, and before we really get into it, I'll give you a little bit of insight into your host. That's Contimi. So in a nutshell, we are a trusted and preferred partner of the global financial industry. We provide software and digital solutions to the insurance, investment, wealth, and asset management, as well as the banking and capital markets. So at a very high level, this is Contimi. I suppose you could pin some numbers to us. So we currently have 250 plus staff across 10 offices globally. They are all really there to support and innovate on behalf of those 50 plus clients, which you'll see below, across 11 countries. One of the most crucial numbers, I guess, here is the 150 plus strong development team. Now, we've invested a lot of time, resource and money, of course, into our products, into our product innovation and our research and development. And certainly that number there will, I'm sure, it's probably redundant now anyway, but it will certainly grow over the next few months and certainly over the next few years. And of course, the final number there, the 5 development centres across 5 different time zones. So if we could just click into the next slide, we'll kind of provide a broad sweeping overview of the session itself. It's worth mentioning the inspiration and I suppose the reason for today's session. Now, I think it's fair to say the vast majority of people in the audience, as well as on our panel today, would agree that in this digital age that we find ourselves in, factors such as speed, operational efficiency, as well as adoption of a digital strategy are key components of success for MGAs. The need for MGAs to do more with less has never been greater, and the ever-evolving landscape has certainly forced firms to readjust or reprioritize in order to become more cost-effective and more customer-centric. So throughout this session, what we're going to do is discuss the challenges faced by MGAs, the increasing role of technology within this space, as well as ways in which firms can future-proof their businesses by adapting and implementing a digital strategy. I'm mindful I've said the word digital God knows how many times now. So if we could just move on to the next slide, we'll have a quick overview of the objectives what we're looking for people to take away from this. So firstly, really, it's to further understand some of the main challenges faced by MGAs today. Secondly, really the importance of MGAs adopting a digital first mindset and how to incorporate the associated best practices. We're also going to explore ways in which MGAs can do more with less, as well as discuss ways to remove unnecessary costs and complexity. So that's enough wittering on from me. If we could just get on to the next slide, please. Lovely. So Andrew, I'm going to throw this one at you first, sir, then hopefully Angelica will give her stance on this question. Really, and then Daniel, if there's any thoughts from your side, it would be great to get your insight. So firstly, how does working in an MGA environment differ from any other type of insurance business?
Well, as you said at the beginning, my experience has been broad, but always grounded with MGAs. And as part of that, worked across different industry sectors. But the thing that I always come back to is that the MGA sector, and it differs by virtue of the nature that there are so many different types of MGAs by size, by complexity of risk, the breadth of product offering, be they monoline, multi-line, single territory, cross territory, insurance MGAs, reinsurance MGAs. Some would say comparatively simplistic distribution model for an insurer. Others look to participate more within their portfolio through PCCs and sales structures, which in our experience really does take a certain mindset and shift of mindset for MGAs, however established they may be. And over the course of the last 15 years or so, as part of that, irrespective of size or product type or all those other facets I put together, sort of IT and IT platforms, data, transfer of data, use of data, analytics has become more and more key, to the point now where many startup MGAs have as their USP their tech platform. I think this is something that Angelica can speak a lot of as well, but either to attract capacity providers, to attract investors into their business, the IT platform is key. For those that are established, it will continue to be key and then more important. I think just lastly as well, I think the ownership of an MGA and therefore also its life cycle can be so very varied as well. Some are independent, some are insurer owned, some are broker owned, where they may be looking to get greater revenue and value from the chain. It's undoubtedly they're often at the sharp end of the cycle, and we've also seen and worked with some MGAs that have gone on to become fully fledged insurers as well. There's obviously the more recent case with CFC, Syndicate 1998 as well. So for that reason, I think that it's more different, more varied. No MGA is the same. The mindset of the management may be different. Where they are in their particular career may be different. So, as I say, we've never seen one MGA like another, and that's the exciting bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. And I think that this is basically what I also wanted to point out, the uniqueness and the unique position of the MGAs in the insurance supply chain and their ability to access and serve niche markets. Everything from terrorism to cyber to, if you want, high-value yachts has basically cemented their place within the UK insurance landscape, and many MGAs provide also very critical support to brokers, and that's also something I wanted to point out here by delivering specialist products that the broker can offer to a niche and very specific market. So basically their ability to understand the specifics of a certain industry as well as the customer base which is connected to that industry are bringing them in a very unique position on the UK market. So that's in a nutshell from my side, just complementing what you said, Andrea.
Brilliant. I suppose, Daniel, unless there's anything from you, we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that. Good questions. No good answers from Angelica and Andrew.
Okay, so really, Angelica, I'm going to throw this one at you first. It's your turn. So what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities in the market for MGAs? And I suppose really getting back to Andrew's point, there's such a wide variety of types of MGA, and I suppose we could try and narrow this down to, I suppose, as many recurring themes as possible across these different types. But what do you see as the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities?
I think that there is one very prominent common denominator, and that's called post-COVID-19 situation. We are here right now, so I see that was one of the biggest challenges for the financial services industry in general. In particular, when we talk about MGAs here, the challenge was really, on a very short notice, the question was how to stay in touch with their customer base and how to use the power of the digital channels to do that. So, for example, a lot of them were concentrating in having a very well sorted content on the web page, because the web page was one of the main and most important touch points in the contact with their customers. Facebook and social media gained a lot of importance also through this time, and looking at the customer-facing channels, research studies, for example, from Norway showed that, for example, phone call volume stayed stable. So basically, MGAs were able to continue contacting their customer base through phone calls. Emails raised slightly. And the interesting thing is that text messages as well as video chats rose significantly by more than 50%. So we see this kind of shift in customer touch points on the one side. So that's the challenge. But on the other side, I see that also as one of the biggest opportunities for MGAs to digitize and to go with the transformational paths around the technology, but even more important to go with the raising expectations from their customers by providing this kind of omni-channel experience. And basically, they have exactly the knowledge of what's the right channel for the right customer base they are serving in particular.
Absolutely. Andrew, I suppose from your side, it would be good to...
Yeah, absolutely. I would take sort of a slightly different, well, I'm coming from a slightly different angle, more sort of at the coalface with MGAs, with insurers. And the last 3+ years has been has presented some very challenging market conditions, some very difficult, unique events, be it initially starting with Brexit, and certainly I've seen that with the sort of freedom of services based carriers and MGA clients that we work with, sort of followed hot on the heels by those that we've worked with Lloyd's, with the Lloyd's performance review, followed on from that from a hardening market, and then, as Angelica said, we've then had COVID-19. So I think that has been a challenge that different MGAs have had to face up to at different points over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's certainly not something that's over. And sort of entwined within that, we've seen an increase in regulatory scrutiny of cross-border business, the potential for new licenses for cross-border carriers, which has increased the cost of and the willingness of carriers to become involved in new business, in new, well, not necessarily new MGAs, but new MGAs to them. And it's also more recently, and this is perhaps directly linked to COVID-19, there's been some of those clients that we've worked with, there's been increased interaction, increased scrutiny by reinsurers directly, where there are specific MGA treaties or MGAs wrapped within a specific treaty rather than the whole book. I think the challenge though remains adding value, or the perception that one is, not just the perception, but that an MGA is adding value to its primary carrier, either in distribution, expense improvement, data processing, management, developing and nurturing underwriting capability. And I think a slight challenge is to fight against any suggestion from some quarters that is the MGA model sustainable. I certainly think it is. I think the market conditions will present challenges to some, say, poorer performing, and of course that could mean many things, but by that I mean where their carrier does not feel they're adding value, or where we might have seen some carriers moving away from the MGA model to looking at their own branch in country and other areas. So the challenges are multiple, and I think the opportunities almost always stem from what the challenge is. Absolutely. And I think that those that are able to adapt and innovate around perhaps those changing behaviours, perhaps Angelica can speak more on that, with the end customer, the way that we've changed our behaviours and adapted our need for insurance. I think IT will allow MGAs to better use the data, better analyse what they have, their pricing strategy, how can they communicate with their carriers more seamlessly. The friction of, we've probably a lot have seen it, with friction of bordereaux and some of those more antiquated ways of passing data from one company to another. That's certainly become something that's needs to be removed. Yeah, and I think just another opportunity that we've seen with MGA, some that we work with, is taking a broader view on how they access their capacity and their capital, be that through working with reinsurers such as Munich Re, who have wanted to become very involved in the fintech sector, trying to get closer to the end customer. And we've seen it provides flexibility and stability to MGAs who will always need backing, especially given the market conditions that I've spoken about in the last 3 years, which will probably persist for some while to come anyway.
Yeah, I think you one of the points Angelica made is this kind of given need now for some sort of digital presence, whereby, it's almost expected as well. And given all the other barriers that they're faced with, you got to think actually, it's going to be tough. But I suppose those ideally positioned really to weather the proverbial storm that you mentioned, will be the ultimate beneficiaries, right?
Yeah, no single carrier that we've worked with or that I've from discussions with other people in the market will look at an MGA that is not IT capable and that can't add value and grow through their IT platform. And simplify the job for the carrier in many ways as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the points you raise there are around simplifying many mundane, antiquated processes. And again, it's similar across a multitude of different industries, not only just the MGA space. Daniel, I'd invite you for your thoughts on the challenges and the opportunities, I suppose, really from a technical perspective. Where do you see it?
Yeah, so first thought is that we might not get the heated discussions here because my view is quite similar or in line with Angelica and Andrew. So I would say that the biggest challenge and opportunities in the market, they correspond. So a challenge is normally an opportunity. But what I would think here is highlighting try to be a bit more specific, highlighting two areas. And we've already touched upon it, but reporting and analytics. So both to provide the right data to carriers, but also carriers and in terms of compliance, but also in terms of using the customer data, owning the customer data and using that to improve the services to the client. I think that is both a challenge for many, but it's a huge opportunity. But then also, of course, as Angelica touched upon, using digital solutions to ensure retention and loyalty with clients. So they have a claim and they leave. No, that's not the way it should be. You need to have good services, use that, have the right tools so that you ensure that they stay with you. And that is expected from the client side. And you can be sure that someone will provide those solutions if you don't. The one simple example there is one of our clients in Sweden. They've created this Varsam rewards. So basically their clients get rewarded for doing several types of actions. It could be recruiting new clients in or other types of actions that they do. So creating that loyalty and using the tools that are available to actually do that. So I think that's a huge amount of opportunity in the market.
Absolutely. Okay, if we could move on to the next question, please. Daniel, I'm gonna throw this one at you to begin with. So really, it's how has the MGA market changed? And really, I think it quite leads on quite nicely from the previous question. How do you see it changing in the near future?
Yeah. So also there from our perspective as a provider also to the industry, what we're seeing is that we're getting more MGAs in the UK and in Norway. I think in Norway, there is also strict capital requirements on carriers. So more are setting up an MGA instead of setting up an insurance company. In Sweden, it's a bit different because there's other capital requirements. So more carriers are set up. But what we are seeing generally is that, especially in Norway, UK, more MGAs are popping up. And there's also then a change in using technology to provide there as well. So not just good services for the big players in the market, but also to provide that to the small and medium-sized businesses who might be too costly to work with them, but with the right technology, you could do that as well. Another thing that what I'm hearing from clients as well is that, capacity providers are also evaluating their tech, which I'm not sure if always has been the case, but that's not something that's, they say to us now is quite important for them. But here, so in this question, I assume Andrew or Angelica, you probably have a lot more insight to come with.
Yeah, happy to continue here and to give you also some of the insights and developments I see also coming from the US market. Maybe Andrew, you might complement with your insights on the ground in UK afterwards. But I see the trend of this kind of startup MGAs where they basically started with a quite solid tech value proposition within the insurance space. And some of them are already developing themselves into carriers. So I think that Andrew, you touched that in the beginning, on that in the beginning, and you showed an example from the UK. So some examples from the US market are, for example, Buckle. So Buckle, they are one of the fintechs providing personal auto for rideshare drivers there, and they just obtained a license to become a fully established carrier. The same for Next Insurance, who provides coverages for small commercial businesses and basically touch on the problem around having this kind of very lean and automated product for small commercial businesses in the US. We already also recently started seeing them cooperating with digital platforms such as Amazon Business, which is a very interesting use case to look at. Another one is Clear Over. They're coming from the motor insurance. And all of them are taking these kind of steps recently into transition to a carrier. Of course, some of these developments were influenced by the IPO of Lemonade on the US market, and it will be very interesting to see how these newly minted insurers contend with customer acquisition costs on the one side and maintain sustainable loss ratios on the other one. Another interesting development is really the focus on MGAs as or the transition of MGAs on the US market towards a software provider. And we have some interesting examples here. For example, Trough is providing a very specific niche product. It's an insurance coverage for individual item, and another one is Slice. We work with Slice also quite closely. They are providing an on-demand home share and ride share insurance as a platform. So their underlying tech stacks for this kind of niche product development are giving them a unique position right now, and we see these kind of shifts there. So that's also something I would very much like to observe further and to see how the market moves in Europe also on that two different types of development.
Yeah.
Angelica, can I just follow on from that, or just, I suppose, dig a little bit deeper? You mentioned there about some of the US clients that you're working with. Would you, and it seems like they're largely technology-led, as opposed to, okay, they're evolving further down the line. Okay, we'll start focusing a bit on technology now. Would you say the large majority share, would you say that they're predominantly technology-led now?
Yes, exactly. As Andrew already stated also in the beginning, this kind of niche could be a very specific within a knowledge of an industry, but it could also come from tech, right? And this is what we see, where we see the development from the tech-driven MGAs in the US. When it comes to the change of the traditional ones, I would very much outline their capabilities to build this kind of tech capabilities, right? At the end of the day, for their purpose and for their business. It doesn't have to be the case that they are going to transform completely into the tech startup, because that's not the core of their business, but they need to be able to provide this kind of solid understanding of technology and be able to also to work with managed services, with easy to understand, easy deployable services on a pay-as-you-go model.
I'm very glad you said that. I was just kind of thinking a lot of people in the audience are probably frightened by some of the words you've said there, but I think, yeah, when some organizations decide to adopt a new digital approach or a new technological approach, there's always that, oh bloody hell, how do we get into this? This is completely different to it. So it's a cultural change as well, right?
Exactly.
Andrew, sorry, I've taken up some.
No. I just want to touch upon a point that Angelica made, and then I sort of, again, a slightly different focus from my perspective. But we've also seen some MGAs who were tech-led, where they've sort of pivoted their business to licensing the technology, and that's either through thinking the revenues there are greater. We've seen they may have seen opportunities to license that technology into insurers themselves, who might otherwise be slower at developing it, not having the IP, the willingness or otherwise to integrate it. And we've seen some insurers in different countries being able to bolt on some very interesting differentiating coverages and services to more traditional insurance products, because the MGA, or the entity that started as an MGA, then pivoted to licensing their technology to different insurers. So from a more traditional perspective, and sitting in London, we're certainly seeing, as I said earlier, the market conditions have been what they've been over the last 3 or 4 years, and we've certainly seen Brexit creating waves and a move away from Lloyd's for many MGAs. I mean, I can't speak for the UK. All of the clients that we work with are overseas. I have a suspicion that that will come full circle in due course, but other carriers have also, such as Swiss Re Corporate Solutions, having had a desire to get closer towards the primary insurance, have then gone full circle and moved out of it. So I think it remains long-term relationship, choice of carrier remains also important, but I also believe that there'll continue to be some regulatory pressure and view of the MGA market. It's not to say I know where that's going to go, but it certainly persisted through 2015 through to 2020 with the Dear CEO letter from the PRA, which I said a little earlier also feeds into how people are perceiving and their willingness to enter into cross-border licensing with MGAs. So it's a veritable kaleidoscope of possible views of how the market's changed. I think it will change in different ways for different people, depending upon where you sit in it. As I said at the beginning, whether you are monoline, multi-line, how specialist you are, where you're sat, whether you are, who you're working with, it's very, very difficult to predict, but there will certainly be changes. But the MGA model and the market will continue, no doubt, to persist for many, many, many years.
That I agree with. And just one comment I want to make, that we're focusing a lot on technology and the digital aspect, but way I see it, so MGAs, they're also used because of the expertise, the flexibility they bring, the distribution, speed to market, risk reduction, and all that. And just you won't get that just with the technology. So you also, of course, need the expertise and all that. So just that you can't just start up, have the technology. You also need to have the right people who actually understands the market. So we have that in there as well.
Well, if I may, Daniel, I mean, the MGA remains the means by which an insurer can most effectively and quickly access a niche area or a territory that they are not currently involved in. And IT will help them do that. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, again, these questions are dovetailing very well indeed. If we could move on to the next one, please. And Daniel, I'm going to kind of stay with you to begin with. So really, we've discussed tech-led MGAs, then onto the more traditional MGAs. So really, I think we potentially could have answered this already, but what part do you think technology will play in the future development of MGAs? And I suppose if you could dig a little bit deeper and give us some examples or just discuss some of the key implications of that.
So I can't just answer a large part. No, it will have a large part, I think, and have a large impact. But to dig a bit deeper, since, well, data and analytics, that's essential for risk control, proper pricing, efficient underwriting. And in order to do that now going forward, you will need the proper technology set up, and also to cover up all the other topics we've covered. So that technology will play an important part going forward. We can see that also with one of our customers, Hogs, an MGA on behalf of Liberty. So they by using our services as well, they've reduced the time to market with 40% generally. And then towards the small to medium-sized businesses, that's 99% reduction, because they've also automated, put some algorithm in, and then actually have a more of a non-touch system as well. So there's a lot you could do within technology, and it will be a challenge for someone. It's a huge opportunity in the market. And what I also just want to highlight here is that it doesn't have to be expensive. If you select the right partner, and basically what you need to look for there is that there's software as a service that will reduce your cost, low code, no code setups. So basically, you as the expert, you can do the changes in the system. So you don't need to get your software provider to actually do all the changes. You could do it in the system. So look for someone that can provide that low code, no code interface. And then of course, someone who has the ability to provide you with the right APIs. So you won't get everything from one solution. So you need to have a system that allows you to create that digital ecosystem that you need. So that's some of the things that I think it's important to think about. And by doing that, you don't need to invest heavily and build your own infrastructure. You could use the experts such as AWS with Angelica, use the opportunities that's out there also to reduce the cost and seize the opportunities that's there.
Yeah, just building on that. So basically, the main KPIs we work against, where we work also together with Contemi on digitizing and helping MGAs transform their core, is really time to market, cost saving. I think that in the one example you brought in with Hawks, it's also interesting to mention that they save by just moving their system. It's not just but that was another interesting KPI in this case, is that they save 70 man hours per month. So that's real work for the MGA, right? They can invest that in a better understanding of the customer group, product creation, and other types of activities. So another touch point I would very much like to talk about right now is I was talking about the digital channels, and the core of each and every digital channel transformation is the call center. We know that people need to have the opportunity to have a quiet and brief call with their agent on a regular basis, and there is emerging technology which can help use these type of services like analytics, machine learning, in combination with the data which comes through the call center as the common denominator and the single touch point with the customer, using video and video analysis in order to streamline certain processes within the claims part for the ones who work in that space, speech to text, text to speech, as well as the ability to forecast interaction with the customer by using technology. I think that these are interesting areas for the MGA in order to stay as flexible as possible in a very changing environment in which we are right now. The core is the data at the end of the day, being able to use the data they gather from the customer touch points as good as possible in order to improve products and processes within their overall business model. I think that that's one of the crucial points.
Yeah, for me, I think I come back to what I said at the beginning about an MGA needing to add value to its various stakeholders, and technology will create a new perception, if it hasn't already, of what is a minimum requirement or minimum added value that an MGA can add and provide to its insurers, to its staff, to its customers, and that will be one sector of how technology is perceived. I think those that really perhaps those that work within areas that are being disrupted can better harness the opportunities by more innovative use of technology, and it depends what platform that is and how quickly that they can bring that to market. But I think it will affect and has affected every level of how staff operate internally with one another. I mentioned earlier about how the carrier and the MGA can interact with one another. The adoption of new and development of new products, the analysis of the data, but it still doesn't fundamentally get away from an MGA still requiring the underwriters, the underwriting capability and expertise. The IT will help you develop your business if you want it to and develop it down different lines. But for me, it needs to be a relationship between IT and individual. And you can't, I've seen MGAs that try and rely too heavily on IT and the two of them still go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think getting back to Angelica's point around data being absolutely key, and the challenges that MGAs then face potentially is being able to dissect that data and translate that data into knowledge. So how do you otherwise it's just numbers, right? You've just got a load of numbers there or a load of words that don't really mean anything. So it's being able to marry those expertise, i.e. the core of the business, to the IT side of things as well, and actually getting those to join up, speak the same language, and hopefully push towards the same goals.
Yeah, well. Absolutely.
Okay, so I think we're on to our final scheduled question. I'm sure we've got a few, and there's a few I'd like to ask at the end as well anyway. Really, Angelica, I'm going to start with you. Apologies. I know you've just had your second jab as well, so you're probably not feeling that great, but I'm going to keep on your case anyway. In your view, how should MGAs go about digital transformation? What kind of roadmap should they adopt? But I suppose the other question to come out of that is what sort of solutions can help them on their digital journey and also future-proof their business?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that the first step would be really to get a very good understanding of the existing application landscape and stack they have already. So this kind of analysis of the status quo is the first step towards transformation, both on the personal skills and capability side. I think that we touched on that. On the technological side, there are some mechanisms like, for example, just one example from AWS, we use this kind of well-architected reviews where we basically support our customers with getting a better understanding of where do they stand nowadays, what are the pain points they have, and basically building this kind of path towards transformation together with them, and start with one use case with one particular pain point which is very high on their agenda and ideally low in complexity, but that's another topic we get a bit deeper here, and then move towards a path to more flexible infrastructure at the end of the day, which gives them also the opportunity to interact within the ecosystem they're already in, but on a digital way, right? Through APIs, through the opportunity to exchange automatically data with third parties. We touched on the point of how to use data, how to exchange data flexibly, but also how to extract this type of insights out of the data and basically move from insights to actions. So I think that's the well-architected review is the beginning, and then the transformation kicks off. So basically, depending on their capabilities and the state they are, the journey could be long, but it could be also very much accelerated by using managed service technology and other on-demand and open source tech, which is already very well established and available on the market.
Andrew, Daniel, do you guys have any thoughts on the approach that should be taken?
Sorry, shall I?
I can go if you want.
Well, I'll segue between the two IT experts by comparison to myself anyway. But the MGAs that we've worked with and have worked with and discussed this with in the past, I think those that have flourished, certainly IT will develop at a faster rate, almost always faster than insurance. But the management of the MGA have had a willingness to consider new ideas, but it can, for many, look like a minefield. Who do we speak to? There's many providers, there's many ideas. Will this investment, sometimes it can be seen as a large investment and a long-term investment, will that remain a flexible, agile system for us? And we've had clients who have adopted an approach of bringing in individuals into their organization, for example, on a non-exec director basis that can help advise their boards, drive some decision making internally, who day to day are living and breathing this IT view of the world. They can then remain focused on insurance, and then between them really morph the two together so that they can offer new solutions, they can effectively adopt new ideas and work with their carriers and all those things that we've mentioned. But that's where I've really seen how some companies gone about the transformation.
And I think that's the right way also to do it. So when I think about that transformation, I think about something that works well, probably in many situations, but people, technology, process, equally important, but in that order. You need to start with the right people to have them in place. So don't start with the technology. You need someone to help you understand that technology. And also there, just speaking from a vendor perspective, I was talking about software as a service, low, no code APIs. Any provider can speak about that. You need someone in your organization who can evaluate the truth to that. Will that actually be, is that something that they're just saying, that's something you have on the PowerPoint, or is it actually the system? So you need someone in the organization to evaluate that, so you know you select the right partner. But also they're supporting your organization so that they understand and can take use of the technology, because you'll get no value just by having a technology stack. That's good. You need someone who can use it and then provide those tools and have the data at their fingertips. That's how you then get the success out of the more digital transformation. But it is a journey. But start with the right people and supporting the people you have. I think that's important. Yeah.
I think, Daniel, just kind of adding to that as well, it's the agility of the solutions that you decide to go with. One other challenge, and I don't think we've really touched on it today, is market interoperability amongst the number of different providers out there. That's always, it's all good and well getting these different solutions that do different things for you. If they can't speak to each other, therein lies another challenge that you're faced with, and it's going to be something you don't really need to worry about. So yeah, I suppose agility is one other factor to consider as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to sort of throw this back to the MGAA. I don't suppose there's been any questions for our lovely panelists, is there?
Hi, William. No, I haven't had any questions come in. Would you like to put your additional questions?
Yes, that's brilliant, because that means I get to throw these at the team. It's getting back to a point you raised, Andrew. I think during the first answer that you gave was around the MGA viability, really. So, and I think you answered it anyway, but I could put it to all three. And it's a very basic question. Are MGAs still viable? Andrew, I suppose I could start with you on that one.
In a nutshell, yes. I think that some of the practices in the soft market have led to a proliferation of MGAs that don't add the value that some of their carriers may have wanted them to. Some of the market dynamics have led to the acquisition costs being excessive or otherwise. I think that we'll see and have probably already seen last year, but a consolidation of the number that there are, a reduction in capacity in different territories and in different lines. But I think that the MGA model will persist. Yes, absolutely. I have no doubt.
Yeah, just adding on that, especially in areas where we observe the emergence of not that new risks, but for the industry new risks, such as cyber, for example, or on the ESG, in the ESG area of sustainability, as well as one very interesting industry I'm working with right now, agriculture. I see a huge potential for this kind of very specific knowledge of MGA, MGAs where they start building up a very viable and very solid business model around one of these particular challenges for new and emerging risks. And both on the risk side, on the risk knowledge side, I see them as a huge potential future player in that value chain, as well as on the tech side, as we already discussed, right? MGAs with particular knowledge on a certain risk with their risk models, proprietary risk models behind that in areas such as cyber or IoT and telematics are more than viable and going to stay there, but they're going also to develop, as we see, we discussed that they are developing in different directions. So that's going to be very interesting to observe.
Daniel?
Yeah, I'm just also speaking more locally in Norway. So in the Norwegian insurance market, there are some huge dominant players who have most of the markets, but there are also now more MGAs that we're speaking to. They want to challenge that, so they are getting international or capacity providers outside of Norway to go in and then try to challenge that market, which I think is really cool, because if you have more competition, that means better service, better pricing, better risk, and everything for the end clients or policyholders.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I think there are some insurers as well. If we look beyond Lloyd's as traditional cover holder type market, there are insurers who are comparatively new who have set out their stall and said we are an MGA specific market, and there are also other carriers in different parts of Europe and elsewhere who have reached a certain size within their home territories, writing on a branch basis, their own office basis, and are now beginning to look to support MGAs overseas. So I think as one area of the market maybe contracts, other areas are growing, and as long as those markets find they can have a profitable working relationship with MGAs, they will continue ad infinitum.
Interesting point, actually, and I picked up on a few things Angelica said there, and as well as yourself, Andrew, is you know, and I suppose really it's kind of another question to throw at you guys. Sorry, but do you think we will see now a new breed of MGA? Angelica, I suppose I could ask you to answer that one first, if you don't mind.
New breed in terms of the combination of both traditional capabilities around risk as well as tech. If that's the background of that, yes, I would say yes. There are shifts and developments across different markets, and we know that the risk situation and capacity situation per market is different. What is interesting to see is also the interest of backing such MGAs from larger reinsurers and carriers. I think that that's also going to dictate in which direction MGAs are going to develop, right? And it very much touches to the topic of new emerging risks and solutions around that using IoT data. So you need a totally new type of expertise around that if you start working on the edge with IoT, with devices. And I see there maybe a new breed, maybe you can name it a new breed of capabilities and potential new solutions which are solving still very valid problems for the customers, which at the end of the day basically want to have individual products for their individual needs on demand, ideally usage-based, right? So that's going to drive, these type of trends are going to drive also the new breed, if you want to call it breed, of MGAs also in future.
I should work on my wording there, really, shouldn't I?
I like that.
I'd add just briefly that I think the involvement of private equity in MGAs will also drive a certain direction and development for some of those, whether that's scale or otherwise. I don't probably have enough direct experience to comment more fully, but I think that where they are involved, it certainly becomes the tail wagging the dog. And I think that while there will remain some more traditional MGAs, I think they'll be comparatively few and far between. And by that I mean those that are non-IT centric or have IT at their core, with your perhaps more old-fashioned underwriters, within them. So I think there's enough differentiation within the market that there won't necessarily be a new breed. I'm hesitant to say there'll be consolidation, but teams moving. But I think it will be very, very varied. I'd be interested to know what the members say and how they view their MGA within the wider sector as well.
Daniel, any thoughts?
I was just about to say that would be interesting to hear also what the members think. But from what I also think is that we've spoken a lot about technology and digital solutions that can help your business today. But what it also enables is that you can get new MGA startups quite fast. So in the past, perhaps if we want to start up and you wanted the technology from day one, it would cost you quite much. And so several I've spoken to said, well, we want to have the technology as well, but we need to spend 200,000 euros the first year, and that will eat of our capital. And that's not what you need to do today. You can go with more standard software, build the products in the system, so you can still have all that flexibility and build specific needs, but you don't need that high investment today because technology has come so far that you can get better service at a lower price. So just be aware of that as well. But yeah, and that enables more to start up and have a good technology set up from day one.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm mindful we have 3 minutes remaining. So firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and certainly giving us the opportunity to speak today. Thank you, Angelica, Andrew, and of course, Daniel, for your thoughts and input. It's been absolutely brilliant. And thank you, the MGAA, for hosting us and for allowing us this platform. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thanks, William. And Andrew, Angelica and Daniel, that was really informative, really interesting. And I particularly liked something I think you said earlier in the presentation or the discussion, Andrew, which I think is so prevalent across MGAs in general, is a challenge is an opportunity. I really think that's, probably the core of what makes a successful MGA and what makes them so unique. So thank you for that. I think that was a really good, particularly good takeaway, certainly for me. So yeah, it just leaves me to say thanks to our delegates for joining today. As I said at the top of the meeting, if you could complete our survey just on your views of the presentation, we'd be most grateful. And I wish you a really good and productive rest of the day. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.